Hello, everybody. Welcome to a visual novel called Fragile Feelings. Basically, the synopsis is a sweet, slow burn Yuri slash lesbian visual novel about an anxious young teacher being swept off her feet by the cool, competent school nurse. Alrighty, guys, so I'm just here to share my gameplay. So, sorry if I butcher any mispronunciations, I'm not the best reader. And if you can hear clicking and fan noises, I seems to be dealing with, all the noise cancellation, but let's just get on with it. For more than half of her life, Anne Clements had been living inside a fishbowl. The world she inhabited was not a literal fishbowl, however, paved with gravel and filled with empty-eyed sea creatures. Though Anne herself was unusual, she wasn't a mermaid. She didn't have gills or webbed feet, and she couldn't breathe underwater. In truth, she could not swim at all. None of this, however, could change one fundamental truth. Anne's surroundings, fishbowl or not, were constrained and carefully man-made. An all-girls academy located deep in the countryside, cut off from the rest of the world. See, I'm already butchering some names. I think it's just the way how describing it. She's in a fishbowl is kind of making me laugh. It was not glass that surrounded this establishment, but trees which looked like something from a German fairy tale, and bumpy roads which were serviced by a bus only at the weekends. This academy was called St. Cecilia's, and it was home to students between the ages of 5 to 18. St. Cecilia's was an elementary, middle, and high school combined, with different classes in different annexes split off and scattered across the campus like flower petals. Like just the annexes, I never heard that word in my life, so maybe I said it wrong. Few more than 800 girls attended St. Cecilia's. This number was not particularly large, and the school, as a result, was not particularly big. All of these girls, however, hailed from wealthy families. The parents and guardians of these aforementioned girls paid through the nose for the privilege of sending their children to St. Cecilia's, for St. Cecilia's was one of the most prestigious academies in Japan. What? My brain just died just there. Sending their children to St. Cecilia's. I don't know if there's typo or not, but my brain literally just died there. The school had been founded by Catholic missionaries who had named the establishment after the patron saint of music, Saint Cecilia. Upon its founding, Saint Cecilia's has been it's getting my tongue, the word Cecilia, had been run by nuns that taught their students maths and science, as might have been expected, but they had placed a much greater importance on music, ballet, and decorum. St. Cecilia's was, in short, a school for young ladies. In the 21st century, however, St. Cecilia was no longer taught by nuns, and the girls admitted were not all Catholic or even Christian. Attendance had fallen, and the school board could no longer afford to be quite so picky about the caliber of girls it allowed admittance into the world of paradise. Importance was still placed upon religious education and the arts, but more attention was paid to the essential subjects universities like to see on a girl's academic record. Aspects of St. Cecilia's had altered throughout its 100 years of existence. As a matter of course, the school's policies, curriculum, and even its uniform had altered at its core. However, it remained much the same as it always had. St. Cecilia was now, as it was then, a secluded school for girls located within the countryside. Whenever Anne looked upon the school, whose edifice too had altered during the years, she could not help but think of all the other girls who had looked upon before her. Thousands and thousands of them. I feel like there's a bit of typos here because it's kind of like not making sense and kind of making sense, if you know what I mean. They were gone now. Some of them would be dead. She would never have a chance to meet these alumni from these decades past. Alumni, I'm not sure. But the school itself remained, it clung on, and continued to command a sterling reputation. St. Cecilia's was still regarded as not just an establishment for the wealthy elite to send their girls ostensibly so they could receive a polished education, but truthfully so they could get them out of the way. That was how Anne had always seen it, at least. Certainly, that was how she found herself upon St. Cecilia's doorsteps, only 9 years old and alone in the world. A decade had passed since then, and still, Anne lived at St. Cecilia's. Her daily routine having changed very little since her early childhood. Anne arose from her bed in the morning, in a room with a large window which was too hot in the summer and too cold in the winter, and splashed her face with cold water in the sink. She brushed her teeth and hair, putting on her uniform, once that of a student, now that of a teacher, then descended downstairs to the dining hall. Therefore, she had breakfast, of which she ate sparingly. Then she would go to class. It had not been so very long ago that Anne had attended classes with her fellow students. Now she was 19. However, she had outgrown her school uniform, her book bag and her desk. A student no longer, Anne now worked as a teacher, not a proper one like Miss Kayano, who took care of St. Cecilia's 4th grade class, but an assistant. It was Anne's job, as it had been for the last year, to sit with Kaname Tamaki, a girl who never spoke, but only hummed and clicked, and when she felt threatened by her more boisterous classmates, growled. Anne had worked one-on-one with Tamaki for a year, and she fancied she was closer to Tamaki than anybody else in St. Cecilia's. Tamaki would often cuddle up to Anne in class and rest her head upon her shoulder, despite Anne's urgings to the contrary. When Anne crossed paths with the young girl outside of school hours, Tamaki would run at her and hug her. This made Anne feel flattered, and simultaneously fearful that the headmistress might see them and launch into one of her little talks about the importance of appropriate boundaries. It happened once before. Tamaki's fondness towards Anne was irrefutable, but still, Tamaki did not speak to her. Tamaki did not speak to anybody, and not that she was incapable of it. Anne had often heard her mumbling to herself during lessons to imaginary friends. Tamaki did not, however, talk to anybody with a corporeal body, not her classmates, nor her teachers, nor Anne. Whenever Anne tried to curse replies of Tamaki, the young girl would clam up. Anne tried not to take this personally. She knew better than to seek companionship from a child half her age, but she was not always successful at this. Though she tried to act the contrary, Anne was horribly lonely. She had never had much in the way of friends, but her isolation had become even more absolute when the rest of her classmates had graduated. Anne sometimes spoke to Miss Kayano, who was sweet and motherly, and she tried to talk to Tamaki, but Tamaki never replied to her. There was Runa, too, Anne supposed, a cheerful girl in her final year in St. Cecilia's, whose energy was inexhaustible. Other than that, however, Anne had nobody. Like a goldfish in a bowl, she felt inescapably trapped. Now it was April. The cherry blossoms were blooming, which promised a new year at St. Cecilia's. Other girls might have woken up on such a morning full of hope, eager to try on their new uniforms and reunite with old friends, but it was not so for Anne. She awoke in the same room she had slept in throughout her sojourn at St. Cecilia's, and had to will herself to peel the covers back from her body. Damn, she looks really depressed. She had slept early in the night before, as she did most nights, there being nothing she wanted to stay awake for. She had slept for almost 10 hours, but still she felt exhausted. That's everybody, you know, you're just not a morning person. She already knew, even as she brushed her hair, that this year would be no different from the one that had come before it. Nothing ever changed in St. Cecilia's, and herself included. She was, and always had been, a hopeless coward. Wow, she's like beating herself a lot. That was quite a read. It's like my brain was struggling to comprehend the words. Alright, so we're basically her, the MC, and that's who she falls in love with, or I'm not sure. Maybe that's a rival. There's gotta be some like spicy dialogue, I think. Like, that's the student, right? And she's a teacher. And that's the nurse as well. Damn, her eyes. That's pretty cool. Kind of showed like a concept art, but not really concept art. But like, you'll eventually see it in the game. But still cool. Whoa, who's this lady? Good morning, girls. It is most pleasant to see you all once more, now that the spring holidays have come to a close. Our new school year is upon us, and while several of your past cohorts have since moved on, I hope you will all strive to follow in their footsteps, to be the best versions of yourself that it is possible to be. St. Cecilia's, as I am sure you are aware, is a fine establishment that admits young ladies from only the most accomplished families, and I hope. It was only a minute into the headmistress's first assembly of the new school year, but Anne could already feel her attention flagging. The headmistress, Miss Akasaka, was an imposing woman in both looks and personality. She was tall, almost I don't know how to say that. I do know how to say it, but like, man, I don't know. With broad shoulders and a large bosom, which heaved dramatically when she spoke. Some of the girls in the younger classes had noticed this. It was hard not to, and they nudged one another covertly while the headmistress pontificated. What are these words? The last time I went to English class was like 6 years ago. One girl spotted and had to clamp her teeth against her lower lip to stop herself laughing outright. Anne would have found the girl's mirth amusing, but... Oh? Miss Akasaka paused mid-speech, her eagle eyes narrowed. Was it you that sniggered, Toyama? Miss Akasaka's eyes zeroed in upon a young girl in Miss Kayana's 4th class, who was looking at her feet and blushing guiltily. Did I say something amusing? No, miss. What was that? Miss Akasaka raised her voice, which was already loud until it rang throughout the assembly hall. Speak up, girl, or I won't be able to hear you. Now, I will ask you again, and this ought to be the last time. You should know that I dislike repeating myself. Did I say something amusing? Bitch, you did. You look ugly. No, I'm joking. The poor girl, Tomarina was her full name. Anne recognized her, squirmed like a hooked fish. It was clear that she regretted her laughter, but it was too late for that now. Miss Akasaka had heard her, and it was widely known fact that St. Cecilia's headmistress showed no mercy. No, miss, I'm very sorry, miss. You ought to be. I would not condone laughter while I'm speaking, nor whispering, nor giggling, nor passing notes. Do you understand that, Toyama? Yes, miss. Good, I'm glad. It seems you can be taught after all now. I take no pleasure in upsetting you girls, and often wondered about that. But order must be upheld. I will not have you disrespecting me. I am the face of St. Cecilia's, and to mock me is to mock this school. Do you understand, Toyama? Yes, miss. Jesus. Speak up, girl. For the last time, I cannot hear you. Yes, miss. Good. I am glad you understand. You should also endeavor to understand, and the same goes for the rest of you. That is my job, to uphold St. Cecilia's sterling reputation. I cannot have my own students eroding the core values the school stands for, which are piety, modesty, and respectability. What? Man, these words are like too confusing for me. So you do know that. Very good. I see Miss Kayana has been teaching you well. Miss Akasaka smiled, but it was a very thin, sharp smile that made Anne shudder. She had seen that smile before, and she knew it did not bode well. It was sort of smile an executioner might make before the head of a convict was sliced clean off their shoulders. Unfortunately, however, it seems you have not properly digested these tenets. As you cannot be called a credit to Saint Cecilia's. It pains me to do so, but you must be made an example of. I will not have giggling and sniggering, not during the first assembly of the year. You must have a touch too much during the spring holiday. You have let yourself grow lax. I will remedy that. Get to your feet, Tayama, and stand at the front. I want you to remain there for the rest of my address, so your classmates might observe you and learn from your mistakes. Up you get. Up. I thought she was gonna expel her or something, man. Miss Akasaka clapped her hands together, and Rina was powerless to disobey. Poor girl. Rina rose on trembling legs, then made her way down the row of her fellow classmates, who all shrank back. Perhaps they were afraid insubordination was catching. That's it, come on, get to the front with you. We haven't got all day. I have many more topics to address in my speech, and I shall not have it hijacked by your unruly behaviour. Sorry, miss. You should be. Now, turn around, eyes to the back of the hall. I want you to look at your classmates and your teachers, not me. It is them you should be asking forgiveness, for it is them you have let down. We as St. Cecilia's are a team, teachers and students both. You will do well to remember that. Rina sniffled, her face bright red with embarrassment, but said nothing else. Perhaps she couldn't speak. It looked horribly like she was about to cry. Now that piece of unpleasantness has been taken care of, Miss Akasaka's upper lip curled. Let us continue with the assembly. I still need to welcome you back, students and teachers both. You are vital components of the school, its blood vessels, as it were, and without you. Anne did not listen to Miss Akasaka's speech. She had heard it numerous times before, both as a student and a member of staff. The precise words Miss Akasaka utilized altered, but their meaning never changed. Time dragged on. Miss Akasaka went through a litany of school rules old and new pupils alike should observe, while Rina was still standing at the front of the hall trying not to cry. And that just about concludes that. I trust there are no questions. Miss Akasaka's eagle eyes swept across the sea of faces before her. As expected, nobody said anything. Very well, I would bid you girls farewell of this, and have you hasten to your classrooms. But before that, there is one more announcement I would like to make. I believe you are all aware that our last school nurse, the eminently capable Mrs. Shiokawa, has fallen pregnant. Of course Anne was aware. Everybody was. Gossip spread in a small, secluded school like St. Cecilia's, there being a precious little else to speak of. Mrs. Shiokawa's belly had swollen slowly but surely throughout the last school term, which had unshared in a good deal of a debate. Girls would feign illness so they could go to the nurse's office, or so they could rest a hand on Mrs. Shiokawa's belly to feel baby kicking. Questions abounded as to whether the child was a boy or a girl, and some of the more unscrupulous, I don't know how to say that, students had made bets on it. Unscrupulous. I said that word before, but yeah. Mrs. Shiokawa will be on maternity leave this school year, and will not be present in her office. She requested a time off to look after a new baby, which I am sure you will be delighted to know was delivered last week with no complications. This came as no surprise either. Mrs. Shiokawa's stomach had been so large to come at the end of the last school year, and had feared she might split down the middle. While congratulations are in order for Mrs. Shiokawa, does this mean we are in need of a new school nurse to take her place? After much searching, I was able to find a suitable candidate. She is a stranger to St. Cecilia's and will be here for only 1 year, but I hope you girls will all strive to make her feel welcome. Now, let me introduce you to the newest members of our faculty, Miss Asaba. Asaba, I don't know. Hey, There was a polite round of applause as a woman crossed the stage with a series of talks to stand side by side with Miss Akasaka. This woman was slender and tall, though not quite as tall as Miss Akasaka, even in heels. Her face was pale, perhaps too pale, her eyes carefully made up, almost model-like. Her woolly legs were encased in dark, opaque tights, which she had paired with a tight pencil skirt and a skirt with a low neckline. That is a lot of detail. If Anne had to describe the new nurse in one word, she would have been glamorous. It's my beauty error. If given a few more words, she would have bolstered that description with utterly enchanting. Miss Asaba didn't look at all like Mrs. Shiokawa, who had been in her 30s, with dull brown hair and brown eyes. She was as dissimilar to her as it seemed possible for a woman to be. Miss Asaba was young, though how young exactly, Anne could not tell, and stylish with it. Anne had never seen a more striking woman before, not in real life at least. Anne was already taken by her, and this was before Miss Asaba eyed the crowd and said in a low, sultry voice, "Alrighty guys, I'm gonna end it here. It's been about 20 minutes. I want to keep the videos short and nice and simple so it doesn't get dragged out too long. I'll see you guys in the next video, and yeah, peace out."